Okay, got the knife off of the thing when we draw filed it. Still pretty rough, but we're going to get the sanding long after we get the handles and everything done. We will have to do a little sanding on the blade first, but this is basically the way this is going to work. I soaked mine in some water for about 5 minutes. I scraped the pattern off of it, so you can kind of still see where we scribed the line on here. I didn't get all the way down to it, which is okay. It's just going to be a little raised right there. If you got down into it too far, that's fine too. You already smoothed all these edges out with the file. See, we've already got it pretty well smooth, and the top. I don't think mine's perfect. I haven't done it like this in a long time. Of course, I have equipment because I do this for a living. So normally I'd have grinders and things, but that's not the point. So basically what we have to do now is we're going to try to make sure that this knife is as flat as we can, so your handles and things will stick to it. I have some large scales and stuff that I use. Find a good ruler or something that you know is flat. If you got a good flat marble surface or something in your wood shop or wherever you're working on, if you got a nice good flat surface, use that. Granite countertops is fine. You can check it with that. This is just a big piece of granite that I do to sand flats and things on. So basically what we're going to do is I got a piece of 220 grit sandpaper here, and I'm just going to do the whole knife and get the burrs and everything off of it. You can do the tip of it for a little bit. Do that, just knock some of these burrs off of it so I can actually get it across the paper. I did start with a reasonably flat piece of steel. I don't know, it's been cold rolled, I'm sure, so it might have a little bit of dip or something in it. But as long as you're not using really weak handle material, it should flex enough and the glue should take up enough that you'll be fine. And that's basically just sanding it. I got a little spot right there, probably be covered up by the handles, but if you want to keep sanding until you get it completely flat, that would be fine too. A lot of elbow work in this stuff, just really the way it goes. But if you're only planning on doing one, take your time, spend a week making it, and don't worry about it. But that's basically all you're doing. You're just flattening it out, cleaning it off, and then we'll move into figuring out your holes for your handles, and I'll show you a way to do that. Hopefully you'll have just at least the tools that I have that I'm going to show you to do it with. Okay guys, we're going to start putting the handles on these. We're going to go ahead and get the holes drilled to be able to put your handles. I'll go through how to do the holes and things in just a little bit. If anybody's got just a set of dividers, those are good to use. Or if you've actually got a micrometer or just kind of any kind of digital ones, or any of them will work. But I usually use these a lot just because they're quick. But basically what you're going to do is just kind of try to find the center. Just make a small line. Okay, that's not quite center. Opened up just a little bit more. And there's no real right or wrong when you're putting these on like this about how high you want to put them. You don't want to put your pins too high, because then you're gonna have a problem rounding it off. And so I like to go somewhere around in here. I'd say that's about an inch under where we're going to stop the handles. So basically all I'm doing, same thing, is I'm just finding center. I'm just going to scribe a little line right here on both sides. That's the center. And then I'm going to move down about the same thing, 3/4 of an inch or about an inch. I'm eyeballing it. I've just done so many of them that I just kind of know how about where I want my knives to sit. So this isn't going to be center by no means, since we had it up on the top. So we're going to, okay, that's about center on the curve. So I'm just going to scribe a line. And on the curves, if you're trying to say, well, it won't come to the center. Well, if they'll intersect anywhere or any place they get real close, that's basically what you're going to do. I can't. So my hole is probably going to go about right here and about right here. Okay, we're getting ready to drill the holes. I put a little Sharpie mark on where I need to drill. One thing I forgot to do on the other video was put in if you want a lanyard hole or not. You want a lanyard hole to put on your knife, you need to put that on there. Now, I always move mine about 2/10 away from where I'm going to do it, but I just kind of a good guess. You can go somewhere around in there, but get it far enough away from the edge that it's not going to crack your handle or things. So you're just basically going to scribe the end of your knife, and then this part or this part. It really does not matter which side you put that lanyard hole on. It's really just something to kind of hold on to if you need it. I have a tendency to put mine on the upper part of the knife up here. So I scribe my line, Where those two intersect, that's where I'm going to put it. Okay, so now you're getting ready to drill your holes, but you got to have the right size pins. Now what you can do is you can use nails. Remember, they need to be soft because you're going to be doing this with a file. You're going to be shaping your handle with a file. You don't want to have some kind of hard pin that won't file down, because then your knives are going to be very, very uneven. What I found was some 1/8" brass. Now, like I said, you can get a nail and find a drill bit that's the same size. These cannot be driven in and out because you're going to have to take your handles on and off once or twice as we're going to be able to do the upper part of the knife up here with the handles. Otherwise, they're not going to be even. We want to try to get them even. So we're going to drill these. These are an 1/8". I've got an 1/8" drill bit already queued up, and I'm going to use that. So now we're just going to drill our holes. Now the back hole, I'm using a 3/16, so I can get a piece of leather through it, whatever you want to use for your lanyard. That's the reason I say move away from the edge some, because I'm not using the same size drill bit. Now what I like to do is take them back over to the sanding block. I'll sand this flat, get rid of all the burrs. Okay, now I've drilled the holes and I sanded a little bit. Now basically this is what we're going to check. We got to make sure that whatever pin that you picked will go into those holes. If it doesn't want to go in those holes almost just with your fingers, then it's going to be too tight to be able to pull in and out. Just get it in till it comes in and out like this. And now I've got those, and then we'll move to the handles in just a minute. Now, this part doesn't seem like it's going to be real important, but when you get down to actually putting your handles on, your glue does not want to stick to steel. That's just all there is to it. It just really doesn't. So you got to give something that the glue can stick to, and usually glue sticks to glue very well, and we call that glue pins in the knife business, and probably in lots of other things that I'm not smart enough to know. So what I'm going to do, and you should try, is just mark the holes that you know are for your handles. Okay, you know that that's for your handles. Just mark them. And I know this seems silly, but I might keep track of it, but you may not. Mark your lanyard hole if you want. This one isn't quite as important, but it needs to be done. So what we're going to do is get a reasonably good sized drill bit on there, and we're going to drill a bunch of holes in this handle. So when we put the epoxy on there, you basically are getting epoxy to epoxy, and it'll hold that way. The other thing I would suggest is know that you're only going to bring your handle up so far. I would go ahead and kind of mark about how high you think that you're going to bring your blade up. You don't want to get it till you're going to file anywhere near your line, and looks like I might have went just a little high. So I'm going to move it down again. I'm going to move it to about right there. There's no way that we can file back that far. And just give myself a line. And now we're going to go over to the drill press and just drill these holes, and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, this is after I've drilled all those holes. Like I said, that I'm going to call those glue holes. Ooh, that's still hot. So now we're just, we got to knock all these burrs off of this thing just by sanding it. We're just going to sand the back of it and get these off. If you have a deburr, you can use a deburr. That's fine. But you're still going to have to sand it just to get it nice and smooth. You don't want to deburr it too much. Pull it up just a little bit so I can get a hold of it. This is 220 grit paper. I know a lot of you have wood shops. You're going to have 220 and stuff laying around. The one thing about knife making is I know they call 220 a fine grit. When you're working with metal, 220 ain't even close to being a fine grit. I use paper all the way to 3600 quite a bit on most of my knives when I'm doing them. 220 is kind of what I start with on a lot of things, just to do exactly what we're doing. It's to deburr. That's basically what I use 220 for. A lot of high spots been kicked up by that drill press. So it's taking a second to get it clean. Okay, now we got that kind of cleaned up. So we're starting to look like a knife here, and we'll move into putting handles on here in just a minute.